last week we stopped here, and now we will move to the next slide. So last week we talked about the research process and how to distinguish a type of research. And today we will continue with a research process and some other types of research. So here we can see the research process in flow chart. And for this one, you can see the research process is not like a single direction process, because we can see the a feedback and steps. Even we can have impact from the later step to earlier one, and then we have to modify our research if necessary, even the later phase of the research. So again, very important to start with define research problem. So that is the most important part to starting point of a research. Without any research problem, we cannot start our research. We have to know the research or your research dealing with what problem. And then you can see the research like a literature review. So by searching other previous literature that deal with the same problem, not or close problem in the same a topic or research area. And next step is the formulate hypothesis. So last time we also talk about hypothesis, and later, maybe not today, but maybe next week, we will talk more about hypothesis. So for hypothesis, I have a question. Do you have any research with hypothesis? And do you think we have to always define hypothesis in our research? Any of you have done something like that before? No? Okay, so it's very good part, because even none of you has done or have implemented a research with hypothesis. That means after this course, I expect you can work more with hypothesis, because a research with hypothesis we need more complete and more understandable than a research without any hypothesis, no matter what area you are working on.
I want to ask that you in the slide is a formulate hypothesis. Does that mean that the hypothesis must be shown as an equation, or it's just something we assume that it will happen?
Hypothesis, yes, it's not question, because question they are more about a research question. But for hypothesis, you state something wrong or right, and then by doing real research, you have to confirm your statement. You confirm or deny your hypothesis. So it's not research questions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So now, I want to know if you have done something with hypothesis in your research previously. Any of you?
I'm not.
Okay. So it seems nobody here have done something with hypothesis. Of course, we will have time to discuss this part more with your your example, like a research example, because last year some students in like IT department, they said no, in the research not necessary to have hypothesis, but after some time they realized, okay, with hypothesis is like more understandable and clearer with the research direction. After like formulating hypothesis, we can do like the research design, and we to and after that we will like collect data and analyze data. So you can see here the two arrows, like feedback and feed forward. So with feed forward, that means we will see like the research design. We can have to define the how we treat, how we analyze data we have, and we in the arrow with the feedback. That means after you collecting data, you do analysis, and then after doing analysis, you realize, okay, it's not enough, or it's still like we have to modify our method to connect data, or even like the data we need is larger than we expected earlier. So that's why really depends on like how we analyze data, and the results from this step will have some like some impact to previous steps, and then we may change previous step to adapt with new situation. And then of course we will interpret and write report. So this one is also like the a research process we have to follow when we do a research. And remember that even you have done something already with a research, and we can complete a research without any like noticing research process or methodology, but make sure that after this course you follow steps in research process. You can see, just follow this step, you immediately have like contents in the part research design or research methodology already. And for some research evaluation, your professors or your funders, they just look at this part to see how you process or how you work on your project. And then they will evaluate your research based on this part only. Because they know that if you understand or if you design a good research methodology, that means you understand the problem. You know how to deal with it, and you use proper tools or skills to work with the research. And then that is enough. Any question here? Okay, next. Research and research methods. So for the research method, we can, of course, there are many like criteria to define research method, but very like popular. We can divide into type quantitative and qualitative methods, and here and when we choose quantitative or qualitative method depends on like your research question. You have to define the research problem and research questions. So the whole research process, your findings will focus on replying, answering your research questions. That means all research questions must be like answered after your research. If not, it's not complete, it's incomplete. And of course, depends also on your preference and skills. Why preference? Because to answer one question, you can provide like quantitative answers or qualitative answers. And why your skills? Because each type of research will require different skills, competence. For example, quantitative method will require you to have like competence on using quantitative tools, like or even like programming or calculate. So it's really important to improve your skills while doing a research, and then now you can see the differences between two types. Okay, so any of you can distinguish research method and research methodology. Do you confuse sometimes with research method and research methodology? In your report, do you often write like research methodology or research method? Any of you? Okay, so without any answer from you, we can see, look at this one, like research method and research methodology. I myself, long time ago, I was confused between research method and research methodology. And why I wrote report, I often like, okay, write like method, research methodology or research method. It really depends on like my feeling. It's not really like I know, okay, what I am writing. So after some time, I realized, okay, it's not correct. We should change, because we cannot write like a research method or research methodology in random way. So the first one, you see, definition. So research method is the process of doing like surveys, connecting data, doing analysis. That means it's the a process of what you will do in your research. But research methodology is the process of studying the research method. Like research methodology is like the way we develop research method, we analyze research method. It has like a broader meaning and activities than research method. That means for research, when we like write research methodology, that means you are developing or summarizing research, the method that when used in your research, or it can be applied for similar research. So you got this point. And yeah, objective. So for research method, objective is to find the results of the research. But for research methodology is like to secure that research procedure is correct. That means it's like it's about ensuring your research method correct. So the question is why, like when we have to write research methodology and when we have to write research method in our research report. So for research method, always in a report, we have to present the research method, because for one research, we can ignore like for the data, for the analysis, for the experiment. We always have to do steps, activities like this. So that's why we always have to write research method. Okay, in this step I will do this, in that step I will do other activity. So always we have to present research method because it's particularly for our research. But not always we have to present research methodology. When we implement research, not usual research method, or you want to develop something new for our research method. So that's why we have to investigate time to develop research method, and that it can be like a new method or new tools, new skills to deal with our research. And also depends on the scope of your research. If you like you deal with quite popular problem or very particular problem, is like known already, so we just write research method no more, because it's not necessary to repeat research methodology. But for new angle of research or for new problem, and then you have to write methodology to prove you are implementing right method. So now I hope you can distinguish research method and research methodology.
I want to ask why we have to distinguish this definition, because in my opinion, I think that for the research method, maybe you need to know it to. I mean, the research methodology is just something you understand in your mind, and you. I don't understand why we have to distinguish two of these.
So the first question, like, okay, do you think they are different?
Yes.
So you see, if they are different, that means we have to distinguish, to do not like mix them together, because they are different. And then if you can present them separately, that means you understand. Because if sometimes you mix, okay, you write research methodology, but below that like a title, you write steps in one research. So that means you are talking about research method. So people can evaluate your competence in doing research because you're mixing like things together. And of course, for research method, that means we have to define particular or specific method for our own research. But for research methodology, it's cover like research methods, and in the part of research methodology, you have to prove your method is correct. So that's why we only write research methodology if we are facing new problem or unusual problem. Because for very well-known, very popular problem, that means very like a famous method or very like a popular method defined already. So we do not like write again research methodology. And sometimes you write research methodology as you see in the definition. That's like a studying research method. So research method can be like an research object in a research about research methodology. For some research, they just focus on how to develop research method for one class of problem. So I hope from now on, in your report, you can distinguish research method and research methodology and write them correctly. And I am sure that you will get like a higher evaluation if you can distinguish these two definitions. And if you write it clearly in your research, so professors understand, okay, you can develop something like understandable and you understand yourself about your research.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, I will move. Thank you for your question. Okay, so now we do quantitative and qualitative research method. So for quantitative is like data that can be like numerically analyzed and qualified in hard fact, like in. But in qualitative research method, we will deal with a numerical data. And a question for you is like, do you often work with quantitative or qualitative analysis or method in your previous studies?
I'm familiar with quantitative.
Yeah. So often with science and technology projects, we work with quantitative. But any of you have done something with qualitative method? No, it's not usual. And for quantitative and qualitative, still like we can have both data collection method, like online or in person or phone or over phone or surveys or experiments or closed-end questions or controlled experiment in lab, yeah, of course, and like. But qualitative, we can have like an open-end survey questions or unstructured interviews. Focus people. So do you understand like unstructured interview or open end or closed end questions? Do you understand those definitions or method? So for closed end questions, that means no idea from you. So for closed end questions, that means interviewees have to give the final the answer with like available options. That means you can control the answer from interviewee. But for open-end survey questions, that means they can provide them as like a free answer as they wish. So in that way, you cannot make sure they will give you like answer with numbers. So that means after that, we cannot using numerical calculations. And then it's not like quantitative. And yeah, for quantitative, often we deal with large scale or statistical analysis. So yeah, here, any of you have done something with statistical analysis, or you deal with statistics? Do you know any tools, or do you like have you implemented some research with statistical analysis? Like, do you know Stata, SPSS, or the language R?
SPS.
Or you're using SPSS?
No, I don't know, but I.
So you heard about it?
Yes.
Okay, SPSS. Okay, so any of you can like do programming, like R or Python, for example.
Yes, I know R, Python, and Julia.
Okay, yes. So for this, like for this skill or competence, so people from IT department, they have more like advantage. So of course, for our research, like exercise, you will have to develop something. Now I just think about like, do you want to work with one programming or one statistic tools? Because from my experience, it's really important, and it's very good for you if you can use a tool to do quantitative analysis. What do you think? Any of you can present your ideas? For example, I may ask you to use R or Python to do some analysis. Of course, your own problem. I do not like give any specific problem for you because it's not it's not fair because of you have different backgrounds. So you can define your own problems, your own research questions. Okay, so maybe during before giving you midterm evaluation, we will talk about it, and we will decide which tool we should use in your exercise. Yes, for doing analysis with a quantitative method, we use statistical programs, tools, analysis. But for qualitative, we like manual analysis with even like a common term um, uh, or vapor analysis only. So we do not use any statistical tools to work with like non-numerical data. And yeah, so even for the same problem, we can have different questions to analyze. So for quantitative method, we can have like a very clear questions. You can see like closed end question. So we with one question, and then we have very clear answers options for interviewee. So they have to select the option that like they conform with that. But for our qualitative analysis, we can have like an open-end question, and then interviewee, they can answer whatever they think, whatever they want. That means we do not control the answer. So we are like, okay, so like last week, we have to jump, like log in again for this room. So this room will close in 1 minute. Yeah. Data example. So after receiving answers from interviewees, we can have a set of data. And immediately you can see for quantitative question and method, we can have like numbers, or like how many percentage of interviewees they decide yes or no. So immediately we have numbers. We can provide a fact already. But for quantitative analysis, we can see like some explanation, some feelings. So we only can make analysis based on non-numerical data. Of course, we cannot say like which one is better, because depends on the purpose of your research. Maybe you qualitative, the second one is quantitative. Of course, it's not always we write okay quantitative results. No, but we can use different word to explain our outcomes. But we should separate like this part. We talk about quantitative, and this part, the second part, we talk about the quantitative, or vice versa. It really depends on the object of your research. So you can present them, but do not mix. That means, okay, you say like you are talking like about like quantitative results, and then qualitative, and then quantitative, and you mix them without any idea, without any purpose. So it's not good. That means you do not understand your research. You don't know how to present to audience, to readers. Okay, I understand the problem. I'm writing with purpose. It's not like, okay, I have 10 readers, so I just write one by one. It's not like that. Why we have to distinguish methods and analysis? Because we have to write them in order. You do not writing doing something without any purpose and without any order. No. Anything you do, you write should be in order, in right order. And then you will make it understandable and clear, at least for yourself. And of course, for to design the research method, you have to prove the validity, reliability, and then like what does it mean? That means whenever you design your method, you design your methodology, you should validate it and make sure that it's reliable to start. Otherwise, because that should be the most important step in your research. Sometimes we just like go ahead and then doing research without any noticing about the design, about the process. That is not really good. Even you can do a good research, you have done already, but if you take a look back to research design or research process, you have to make sure that, okay, everything afterward you do correctly. So you have to validate your research design first. As college, as professors, as trusted people, to evaluate your research design process first, always. And then you can continue with like what you have designed. So often for big project, after the research design research project completed, they will have a workshop, a seminar to present what they are preparing. And often they will get some comments to improve and some decision to validate the research design. Any question here?
No.
Okay. Yeah, when we know like there are many types of research method, skills, or competence or tools, so you have to choose your approach for your research. And then, as I said, often we will ask our college, our professors, or even our organization, because each organization, they will have different approach, different method for studies, and also depends on like your own experiments. because you cannot choose something that you do not understand or you do not know it. But of course, it is very important and you have to do so. So you have to improve your skills competence. There is no completely right or wrong answer to choosing your research method, because with each method, as you saw already in the previous slide, they have a different role, different meaning. So whenever you choose one method, that means you have to prove your choice is correct or is at least good for now. Depends on timeline, depends on like a budget. For example, of course, not always we have to have free tools to do your research. Or if you choose research method that need a lot of money for surveys, for interviews, for experiments, because material is very expensive. So it's not good. So you cannot do it. That means whenever you choose one method, you have to show reason why you do that way. So that's why do everything with purpose. And if you start thinking about, okay, whenever you do something, you have to find the purpose, and then it's easy to prove your idea, your choice to others. Do not like choose one method or one thing because we like it, or just the first thing you think about it. No, it's not that way. Always think about the purpose, about the reason why we do this step or other method. So to be more specific, you should consider 5 questions. as required by the department, and I have to make some screenshot. And now it's time to do so. We have some minutes remaining for this login time. So please turn on your camera. Hypothesis in like the boy who cried wolf. So do you know this story?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So it's very, very popular. So often, whenever we do research and we have some hypothesis, we will make type like make error mistake, and we can distinguish like two type of error, type 1 and type 2. So you see, first, everyone believes that was a wolf, but there is not. That is one. Like we believe in our hypothesis, we prove it's correct, but it's not. And the second type, they believed there was no wolf, but there was. That means we deny our hypothesis. We don't believe, we deny. We say, okay, it's not true, but it's true. That is the second one. So when we do a research, so often we have the same problem. After doing some surveys, some experiments, we say, okay, our hypothesis is right, but it's not. So do you have any example in your previous project that you made the same mistake, and after some time you realize, okay, you're wrong? Any example?
Sorry, but I still don't understand what is a type 1 and type 2 errors.
Okay, so type 1, that means you believe in your hypothesis, in your results, but it's not. For example, you want to explore the relationship between GDP growth rate and the population. That means we say, okay, our hypothesis is with less population density, we have higher GDP growth rate. We believe, okay, it's true. After doing some research, you make some analysis, but it's not true. That means you're wrong. When we do a research and we are wrong, that means we made mistake. So that is type 1. We believe in something that is not true. That is type 1. And for type 2 is you don't believe in something. You say it's not true, but it's true. That means you made type 2 mistake, error. Is clear now?
Yes, okay.
Yeah. So do you have any like example from your own experiments? Or never you made any mistake in your research? Okay, so less than 1 minute. We have to stop here and then we have to move to next login. See you in few minutes.
Thầy phải mở mic lên ạ.
Okay, sorry. So here we can see like how we can have to face with type 1 error. So we have to find the correlations between two variables, and in this graph you can see the the first one is like a number of people died by becoming dark in the best seat, and also like by cheese consumed, and then you can see quite, it seems they have correlations, but in fact it's not. So that means our finding showing that there are correlations, but it's not true. That means we believe in some conclusion or some hypothesis, but it's not true. So that means type 1. And the same situation with the graph 2. So now it's clearer about like type 1 and type 2 error when you do your research. And there's again one question: have you made mistake like this in your previous research? No. Yeah, it's good. Never you made some similar mistakes? And a question: any of you has not attend statistical class before, or all of you have a statistical seminar before?
I haven't.
So all of you have, right?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Okay, so in that case, it's not really easy, because at least for quantitative analysis, you have to know about like statistics. For example, like a hypothesis, significance never, p-value. Yes. So the question is, do you want to include that like knowledge in this course intensively, or we just go through like very briefly and then you can you search, because we have many topics to discuss and this course is not specifically for statistics. We just use statistics to support the research design or research methods. So my advice here is you should read statistical knowledge or lessons. Otherwise, it's not easy to do a good research in any research area. If you do not have any knowledge about statistics, So if you are not familiar with statistics, how we can be good with one, because this course been based on like on statistics knowledge. And okay, so I think I will change a little bit. So we will go back to this part with more like basic, with more background of statistics. It's better for you, I think. So do you agree to do so?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So the first one. So I think we will have we have some like at least one section to discuss statistics and tools for statistic and work. So I think that should be better for you. Okay. And yeah, so back to the research question. And if you decide to go for quantitative research, so you should think about like the sample size and the correct statistical test. So how we can, because for we have many types of statistic tests to find out the correlations between two or more than two variables, and how we can choose the right one for our analysis is also very hard question. Because if you choose wrong test after doing statistical analysis, you may make mistake and type 1, type 2 error. Yeah, so like by choosing the right test, we can reduce the likelihood of making errors. Or like we have to see like our results method is original, and we can work with it, or other people can redo it or not. And how we can measure things like data or population side correctly or not. So for one statistical test in quantitative research, we always have to consider the size of the population, the data we take from each object, and the type of test we have to use. Of course, if we never work with a statistical test, so it's not easy, but okay, anyway, like we think about it. So sometimes we choose quantitative research, but we have some mistakes, not at the end for type 1 and for type 2, but in between, because something you cannot measure, you cannot like use quantitative answer or experiment to measure it. That means we cannot get the accurate results from our objective. And something that like can be impersonal, or it cannot tell you why, like it cannot answer your question, research question. So that means like, okay, after doing research, after doing quantitative research, you cannot deal with your question, research question. Even not dealing with numerical data, but qualitative approach will require you even like more competence, understanding about your object. Because for quantitative, it's a little bit easy if you can use statistical tool or numerical calculus. You can calculate whatever you have, and then you have numbers. At least you can present numbers, results, without saying anything. Just describe what number you have, the level of the results you have. But for quantitative analysis, you have to use your own words to explain things, to explain how you understand about the data. So no other supporting tools can help you to do so. You have to use your own experiments, own competence to analyze things. So even like looking at quantitative and quantitative, you think, oh, qualitative is not really like accurate. It's not really like complex, but it requires more knowledge from you rather than like quantitative. Quantitative, if you know the method, if you know steps to do, no process, like, okay, you have data, you have tool, so you use tool to run your data and then you have results. But qualitative requires more than that. So it's not easy to compare, okay, which method, which approach is more important, more complex, more difficult. It really depends on the data you have and the final purpose, the final findings you want to show to audience. Yes, and for quantitative data, we don't need to have large sample size, and that is also like disadvantage of this approach as compared to quantitative research, because we agree that with quantitative research we can have large, very large data size, but for this approach often we have smaller size. So for qualitative, we often analyze content or discuss the narrative and conversation, and we have to focus on like the various aspects and also like non-numeric data. So in some cases, we cannot use quantitative but qualitative. And again, because before you have never implemented something like with qualitative approach, so why I have to emphasize and give more time to explain between quantitative and quantitative, because from now on I expect you like pay attention at qualitative. It's not like okay, because we are working on science and technology, like we can ignore qualitative analysis. We have to focus on both to make your research complete and more accurate. So have you been in one like a museum with audio guide?
Yes.
So yeah, so which one do you like a person lit or technology lit?
Person lead.
Yeah, why?
Because I feel like it's more interact.
Yeah, and
In
live,
communication.
right?
Yes.
And also like you can have like open end questions, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's more flexible. But do you think like for person lit is only for a small group,
Yes.
and for technology lit we can work with like many people, no
Yes.
matter like the size of group is, right?
Yes.
But it's quite closed information. We can explore more than that. And yeah, so also like we have different approach for one problem. If we fix one like with people lit, that means we open with qualitative, but we use technology one, that means we are close to quantitative, because one is fixed with larger population and we can apply quantitative analysis very easy, because you can, for example, below each picture often we have technology like one small device to explain things, and it speak only if you press the button. So in that case, we can collect the data like, okay, how many times one picture will be asked like to explain, because without any pressing the button, so the speakers do not like say something, do not explain about the picture. So that means we can connect the data easily. And it's number like how many times. But for people lit, it's not easy to do so. And we have more like a feeling of the audience, visitors. We can have like open end questions. So with the same problem, with the same solution here, we can propose both like a quantitative or qualitative approach. And then of course, you see now even in museum, they can use only technology lit speakers to explain information, to provide information, but still they use both, because each type of approach will have different advantages, and then it will provide more benefit to end users. So that's why for our research as well, we should provide them both to make it complete. So do you have any question about this part? I expect now you can distinguish clearly. So the key message today is you have to distinguish research method and research methodology. You understand the hypothesis with type 1 and type 2 error. And very important, you understand the qualitative and quantitative research. And I hope you can apply what we discussed today in your research. So next week, we will have more time to discuss research method design, and we will start discuss about the midterm evaluation, because you will have some even 1 or 2 weeks to complete that one. So any other questions?
No, I don't think.
Okay, so if you do not have any questions, we can stop here, and thank you very much for your participation, and see you next time.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Have a nice
See you next
weekend.
week.
Bye.